momentarily. It usually comes as a surprise, and all of a sudden we're there. So, in
Nice.
just a few
Oh,
minutes.
yes. Aw. And I see our caption.
Okay, we are there. That's great. Hold on. I don't want that. Whatever this is. Okay. All right. So let me go down to, all right. So we're not quite at one. So we're just going to continue to chat here.
Yeah. So you were telling me how you were doing at the Bay Area Book Festival.
Oh, okay. It was really fun. The thing that I liked, I think the best about it, was just the variety of people who show up at these things. I was in the last group, and it just, by that time the wind had picked up, so it's a little blowy, but there were still people coming by. There were still people interested. I thought it was great, and it's just a wonderful way to talk to people. I had a young girl, she might have been maybe in middle school, maybe a freshman in high school, and she had a book with her, and she said, I only read mysteries. I like thrillers. I like cozy. She just went on and on and on and on. It was
she knew about the micro genres.
She knew them all. She was really wonderful. Hold on, I'm going to just check one thing here.
Sure.
Make sure. Yeah. So those of you that are watching this, I'm kind of doing. Usually, I do tech behind the scenes, but right now I'm doing tech all over. So let's get back to this, and I will do my best. All right, let's do that. Okay. All right. Hold on. So it's 1:00, so we can get started. And hi, everybody. I'm Glenda Carroll, and I'm here for the Northern California Mystery Writers of America. And this is Facebook Saturday Live. And this is a spot where our authors, mostly local authors, I think we've only had one from out of the area, talk about the craft of crime. Talks are short and very focused. Today we're talking about turning our locations into characters in your book or a short story. Things are going to be a little bit different today than normal, than what usually happens. I'm the guest, so I'll be the one doing the talking, and I'll be speaking about locations and how to develop them, or at least use them as you're writing. And I'm going to be interviewed by Vera Chan, who is on the screen here with me. And I'm going to read you her bio. So that's Vera Chan worked in the journalism industry for near 3 decades, from a suburban daily newspaper to the world's biggest online destinations. That's Yahoo and Microsoft. A winner for Sisters in Crime Eleanor Taylor Bland Award, and second place in the Effie Lee Morris San Francisco WNBA Literary Awards fiction category. She's contributed to Asia in the San Francisco Bay Area, Martial Arts of the World, an Encyclopedia of History and Innovation, and the Midnight Hour Crime Writers Anthology. She's repped by Holland Literary. Now, if you have any questions during or, as we go through this, put them in the comment section on Facebook and we'll get to them. And before we start, I just want to ask you out there, if any of you'd like to learn how to run these kind of events, learn how to do this, the live streaming, the tech work, it's not hard. If so, drop a note in the comment section with your name and I will get back in touch with you. And so, Vera, it's up to you.
Yes, well, it's a little bit of a quid pro quo. Since you talked about me, I get to intro you, even though you have been a faithful pretty much every week doing this. So I'm glad that you're looking for other folks to fill in and supplement what you're doing. But yeah, Glenda, you guys know that she is a water baby. She is in it, under it, on top of it. I don't know if you surf yet or windsurf, but you probably don't.
Yeah, I've been a surfer for a long time. Yeah.
And by the way, I never told you this, Glenda. I have taken swimming lessons for many years. And even while I can do a stroke, I'm a sinker. So I think it's ironic that I am interviewing you because I would basically drown and you'd have to save me. But Glenda is the right person to save you. And then same as me, she has a journalism background. She wrote a weekly sailing column for the Marin Independent Journal for nearly 20 years. And she wrote for local, national, and international sailing publications. And then she did travel writing. And her writing has appeared in many local and national periodicals as well, whether it's San Francisco Chronicle, Travel and Leisure, Defenders of Wildlife, Bay and Delta Yachtsman. But yeah, that's right. You did discover surfing through PacificWaveWriter.com, asked you to write a twice weekly column. So I guess, invited you to say that. And then you did that for more than 3 years. But, of course, we're here to talk about your book, how you approach setting as characters in your book, right? So, of course, the series is, started with Dead in the Water, followed by Dead Red, and then Dead Code. So gosh, you've been in so many open water events and everything. You're just like an expert inside and out. So it's very, very cool to be able to talk about this with you. Here you have been like just ushering people in and you've been just hiding all this glory. So I want to start with a question, right? So we're talking about setting. So how do you think people, whether in the mystery genre or other literary genres, how do you think authors usually approach setting in sort of more, quote, traditional ways?
Well, I think they do the basics. I mean, if you think about setting, location, it's where you're placing your characters in a book, in a short story, wherever. But it's really, most people do just the basic. Give maybe one or two little highlights of where they are. They might say the name. And if you're lucky to know the area, you'll know where you are. You'll know if you're in downtown San Francisco. You'll know if you're in a galaxy far, far away, if you're in a busy city, or you're someplace rural. But, honestly, that's about it. Most time we focus on the protagonist. We focus on the crisp dialogue or the action that pushes the story. And I think location doesn't get the credit it deserves. And your reader misses a lot, I feel, because of that. We just don't emphasize the surroundings a lot. And by surroundings, I just don't mean particularly location. I'm talking about weather. I'm talking about the terrain, local plants, or maybe even local animals. I want to read from the second book in the Tricia Carson series, Drop Dead Red. And Tricia is going into a pool. Now, in my series, there's a lot about water, but Tricia didn't start out being the swimmer in the series. It's her sister, and Tricia was driving her to all these swim meets and things. So in this case, her sister has convinced Tricia, the protagonist, to go to a pool just to get some exercise and hopefully lose a little weight. Okay, so this is from Tricia's point of view. I stuck my head under the water. The sun shining into the pool was dazzling. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed the moving colors, the light blues fading in and out as the water moved. I started to swim, thoroughly enjoying the underwater view, legs kicking by me in the next lane, arms pulling through the water, and the line of bubbles as I let out puffs of air. Now, that's short, simple, but I think you come away with the fact of somebody's surprised that she likes this. It's a positive vision. And she talks about the pools and what she's seeing. She talks about the color. She's talking about people around her. And you get her mood. It's like, this is fun. I really enjoy this. So I didn't have to do much. I hope you just got a feeling for her feeling. Now, when something is given kind of short shrift, there's a big difference. I was once reading a Cold War thriller placed in Munich Now, I've traveled a bit and I've been to Munich. I kind of know what it looks like, even the surroundings, what it tastes like, what it smells like. It's unique, like most big cities or any location. But this author just basically said, we went down this street, we turned left, we went down that street, and I can't even remember if they gave a German name for the streets, but street into a park. Well, I could have been anywhere. I could have been in Chicago. I could have been in Des Moines, could have been in San Francisco. And I think as a reader, I wanted more. So really think about this when you're doing your location.
You actually brought up something, when you're talking about meaning about taste and whatnot, when we're reading, right? Reading is actually a visual experience, obviously, right? Well, unless you're listening to an audiobook, but let's just put that aside. But ostensibly, reading is a visual experience. You're looking at the words unfold, and in your mind, right, you're translating those characters, those words, the characters in the words into like a visual portrait. And so I wanted to ask you, about as you highlight the settings in your books, like, about creating that visual portrait using setting.
Okay. I want to read you a fact I found out. Did you know that readers process certain words faster if there is a sensory element to them? And I always use the five senses to give myself, to ground me as the writer and my protagonist. And you have to remember, every location is unique. Like I was talking about Munich. I had no idea where this character really was, but I knew it because that's what the book is taking place. But everything has its own special characteristics. And so the five senses, to me, put a pulse in the scene. They go beyond, it gives it a little bit of depth that sometimes you don't get with just the dialogue in the moving action. So when writing a book, one of the things that I do or a chapter or even a scene, I close my eyes just for 10, 15 seconds, and I visualize where my protagonist is, what's around her. And sometimes one or two things pop up. And sometimes if they pop up continually, I make sure to use them. But I can use that detail to help talk about Trisha's mood, what potentially might happen. All these are things that I think, to me, I have found really helpful. Are the most common of the senses is sight. That's what we see. And I'm going to read yet one more thing, and this is from the latest book, Dead Code. And Trisha and her father are driving from Marin across the Golden Gate Bridge into San Francisco to go to Ocean Beach to look for someone who's missing. And throughout most of my books, this character, Trisha's driving a lot back and forth from Marin to San Francisco. And many, many times it is foggy. So Trisha's driving, her dad's the passenger. Oops. Hold up the wrong book.
Dead Code.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Where are we going? Dad asked as he settled into the passenger seat. I'm not sure. A wall of thick fog engulfed us as we drove down Highway 101 for the Golden Gate Bridge. I switched on my headlights. Husky drops of moisture clung to the windshield like glue. You're going to need your wipers, advised Dad. Not sure that will help, but I turned them on anyway. The flip, flip, flip of the windshield wipers, moving from side to side, smeared the ever-present dirt and dust already there. Geez, Trisha, I can't see a thing. When was the last time you washed your car? I don't always have time. I pressed the windshield washer knob and a stream of water joined the fog drizzle. The grime only smeared more. Press it again. Okay. I pressed the button a few more times until the grime started to subside. Not that it made any difference. Dense fog forced me to slow down dramatically. The gloom even erased the brake lights of the cars in front of us. This is as bad as I've seen it, observed Dad. I strained to watch the road ahead. Traffic moved onto the Golden Gate Bridge, the large russet arm bridge towers invisible even as we crossed. You know, they painted the towers international orange because you could see it in the fog, said Dad. Well, it's not working. I don't see anything. So we're getting a point of view from Trisha and her dad, and hopefully the visual gets you a feeling of it's foggy, it's cold, you can't see, that's kind of scary. They're going into a situation that's going to be kind of scary. So it could relate to that, but it's that heavy duty going through the fog, going through the cotton ball fog, got to slow down. And you learn something about Trisha. She's not the neatest person in the world. She doesn't clean her car very well. And her dad, like most parents, will let her know that she needs to do a little bit more.
I mean,
So,
I mean, your fog as a character, the foreshadowing or the foreboding nature of it, right?
Yeah.
Definitely the character sketch. And even when her father kind of very paternal like or very typical father, like, did you know the da 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 da, right? And so that you're sort of reinforcing the everyday nature of where they are and kind of his character as well, right?
And he does that a lot in the books he's in. He's always giving you, he's sort of the tour guide. Did you know when in my day, I remember when, so he does a lot of that.
Yeah, completely unrealistic character, really. But no.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that you said, like when you wrote flip, 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 which is sound, right? And then glue obviously indicates like the textural nature of the fog as well. So obviously it's not just a visual portrait that but well, part of the visual portrait, I should say, is encompassing the other senses. So how do you look at the other senses? Like, as you said, you do the Zen thing, you close your eyes and you see what you see and you try to put it in. What about the sight, smell, the sound, the touch?
Sure. Well, there are other senses. There's 4 other senses. And I'll talk about all of them just briefly. Touch gives us a wealth of information about the world around us. And that helps your character also. And it makes for great description, I think. So think of the difference between running your hand down a smooth stainless steel refrigerator, what that feels like. And think of running your hand or fingers over a crumbling stone wall, a fence out somewhere in nature. Very different feeling. But just mentioning something as small as that, your reader is like, okay, I'm in a kitchen. Maybe it's a very modern kitchen. The other one is maybe I'm out, in the woods somewhere or rural farm area. But you get the sense of what it feels like. Vibrations are also part of touch. It could be the way your body moves back and forth when you're riding on a train, or that moment before takeoff when you're on a plane and it just kind of shudders, almost can't feel it, but you know it's there. And then, of course, if you're writing about this area, it's not a bad idea to write about living through an earthquake. Yes. That's really unique. You can't find that too many other places. So that's touch. Another one is hearing. And so what does your location sound like? Say you've got wind going through the trees. Is it making the leaves rustle? Or is it this like a tornado whipping those trees up and sending them flying? What is your character hearing wherever they are? Is there a violin tuning up? Maybe a garage band with a really heavy, drum beat. Or getting back to the Golden Gate Bridge, the foghorn, the 2-tone foghorn, which I have driven over many times in fog, and it goes off right underneath my car, and I just feel like I'm going to levitate and drive off the bridge. I've researched those foghorns to the nth degree. Next one is a favorite of mine. It's smell. We can smell over 1 trillion scents. That's a lot. Dogs are better, but we're pretty good. But, and this might be good for some of your work, depending on your characters. Did you know that our sense begins to deteriorate when we hit 80? Okay.
80.
So if you think about a character who maybe doesn't have a sense of smell or not a very good one, is it their age? Do they have a cold? Maybe they have COVID because one of the symptoms of COVID was losing, sense of smell and taste, or the sense of smell or the loss of it is also a symptom of schizophrenia.
Mm.
So that's something you might be able to use sometime. But like perfume, a little bit goes a long way. You don't have to put every little detail in or go on for pages about smelling, the sweet strawberries, first strawberries of the season. So just, pick your details that really help your character. And I found this sentence somewhere, and I can't even remember where. I'm going to read it to you. Talk about smell. Dr. Hammond's house smells like a form of slow poison has been hanging in the air for years. You want to go in that house? Not me. I'm not going there. I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is it's not going to be good. I just don't know anything about it. And the last of our five senses is the sense of taste. And this is so much fun. What does your character have in their pockets to snack on? Or their purse or their backpack? What do they have? Do they have cashews, mints, carrots? That's going to tell your readers something about your character that maybe you had no other way of doing this. Maybe your character's on a diet, or maybe your character has some cigarettes that nobody else knows about. That's going to tell something about your character. I remember when I was in college literature, I read a book by Marcel Proust called Remembrance of Things Past. It's in French. And it starts off with this man coming home from work, very tired. He's served some tea. He has a little cookie called a Madeleine. You can get these at Starbucks. Don't taste the same, but you can buy them and you can see what they look like. So he dips the cookie into the tea, takes a bite, and his whole childhood comes back to when he first started having the Madeleines. He goes on for 3 volumes and 3,200 pages, just something based on the sense of taste. So it could open up everything. It could be the, oiling the oil that you use to oil a baseball mitt or a pipe. There's so many things of smell that I think that can really kind of, again, ground your reader and help you bring a little depth to your main character. So, use your senses when you can and really spend just a few seconds to visualize what that's like.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There's so many studies, right, of when you talk about aging populations and in their memory and, in cases of dementia or whatnot, how they play a song from their childhood or some kind of scent from their childhood that can trigger all that memory. And so, of course, if they're familiar with it, then it might trigger a whole sets of like a form of intimacy, a bond with your stories. Or if they are not familiar with experience, you've learned, you're teaching them something new in addition to just not just throwing out some plot devices. And even though I know the theme of this discussion, this talk we're having here is about setting its character, everything that you've brought up here, in a way, setting is also like culture, right? Because you're painting not just an individual entity like the fog, right? But you're just really doing a sense of place that represents many people, many traditions, a history or whatnot. And so, it's interesting because you can have the setting throughout, or you can have a place that you only visit once, like a scary ass house, and where does that lead you? So I wanted to talk to you about that, how you have used setting to create a sense of culture, a sense of place.
Okay. That's really interesting because one of the things that I really enjoy doing is description. That's why I'm talking about this. And in the first book, Dead in the Water, Trisha goes to meet someone that she's kind of just met. And she's meeting them at a restaurant in San Francisco in the Mission District. I'm not talking south of Mission with all the high tech stuff and the ballpark, and this and that. I'm talking the heart of the Mission, where there's taquerias and there's a lot of people going around, and it's very, very busy. I'm going to read just a scene where she's waiting to see if this person is going to show up, and then she'll go in. Okay, so this is from Dead in the Water. I was now parked down the street from El Oriente Salvaje in the Mission District, and I was early. The Mission is a high-strung neighborhood with an active pulse. The sidewalks were packed, people rushing out of the BART station, San Francisco subway, coming home from work, families stopping into taquerias to pick up dinner, and young teenagers in tight black jeans skateboarding around parked cars. I do the One Mississippi thing a few times. If I didn't see Justin go in, I was on my way home. I was on the 9th One Mississippi when I saw him walk through the restaurant's front door. A combination of dread and relief flushed over me. Okay, I was going in. The restaurant appeared closed. I could barely see the small twinkling light through the black, thickish gray window shades. I walked slowly toward the front door. Just as I pushed it open, an older Latina pulled up one of the shades. Voila, she said, smiling. It was like walking across the border. Outside, horns honking, motors running, the starkness of concrete sidewalks and streets, graffiti, and too many hurrying people. Inside, I found myself in a warm family restaurant, wider than it was long. The kitchen where the abuelitas, the grandmothers, were preparing the food was at the back. Couples and families with small children sat at tables, topped by formica. The walls were covered with black and white photographs of a dusty rural El Salvador. Laughter and chit-chat were mostly in Spanish, as was the menu. Some people stood at the back counter picking up food to go. Justin sat at a corner booth talking with a short, olive-skinned woman in her early 30s, with round, deep brown eyes and long, dark hair, pulled back and up, held in place by 2 combs of golden sunflowers. Even from the front door, I could hear the music and joy in her laughter. Now, Trisha goes back to this restaurant a few times to talk to the people who work there. And each time she just has this feel of warmth when she walks in. Doesn't matter that this Justin turns out to be a creep. But I'm hoping that I gave enough description that people felt she's going into a safe place and it's comfortable for her. Not so much Justin, which you find out about, but later on.
Well,
Yeah.
but even then, right, at first glance, so typical, so many of these Bay Area places where you can't even see in, it's just dark, right? So until the heart is revealed, as you said, the abuelitas and everything like that. But yeah, that definitely kind of sets the mood for your spoiler. You just spoiled yourself, but okay.
Yeah.
But that's fine. So I wanted to see if you wanted to check with any questions that are in the chat, or if we can have a little bit more time, or I can ask you another question.
I think we have, I actually, for whatever reason, I can't find, and folks out there, I usually do the tech in the background.
Oh,
and
I don't see any questions. I see
Okay.
Vinny and Claire's on definitely. So hello, thank you.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I just see that. Oh, wait a minute. There's 9 comments.
Oh.
Let's see. Okay. Vinny. No, Vinny. Okay. She says fog, such a part of that area's life, especially on the bridge. Oops. Let's see. Great observations about sensory effects.
Mm-hmm.
There's some more things this is from Claire. Fog can be a metaphor for solving a crime, where initially you can't see a solution. And if you start to drive out of the fog, and the objects around you slowly become visible. It's like dropping clues in a mystery. Wow. I'm impressed. That's great. Yeah. I think it's just about 1:30. I think we have time if you want me to read the last, you wanted to talk about something else, I think.
Yeah.
We can go on just for a few more minutes.
I want to talk about you, right?
Oh, okay.
Well, we're talking about you. We're talking about your insights, but of course, your insights are informed by your experience. And we both were in daily newspapers back in the day, and we both freelanced. And of course, you have your actual water experience, but you also have your journalism senses, whatnot. So, just want to see how that informed how you crafted for fiction.
Well, just a quick thing. When I was writing, I was a sports writer for the Marine Independent Journal for almost 20 years. I wrote about sailing. Okay, I also wrote about surfing on occasion. And then professionally, beyond that, I was always in communication or public relations, and everything was factual. And somebody at one time asked me during those time periods, did I ever have a book in me? And I was really very haughty. I said, how can you write about things that are not true? And I found out that I could, and I really enjoyed killing people. So, that was, I had to go through all the learning how to write to meet a deadline, to meet a word count. The other thing is I do follow the old saw, write what you know. And I do spend a lot of time, most of my life, in and around water. And certainly in the past 20 years or so, in open water swimming. And I write a lot about that. One of the things when I was surfing, and for those of you who think you cannot surf, I learned when I was in my early 50s. If I can do it, you can do it. So don't give up because you think you're too old, which is my big excuse for everything. When I'm afraid, I'll say, oh, I'm too old, I can't do that. Don't do that. But when I've been surfing, when I paddle out, I look at the water. I look at the color of the water. I look at the changing color of the water. I was once paddling out somewhere and I saw the sun was setting and the waves coming towards me just turned into rolling silver. I felt like I was in a place that wasn't even on this earth. I talk about it because it was unique. It's an experience. I can visualize it to this day. So I'm going to finish this little talk up with a piece from first book, Dead in the Water. And this is about an open water swim. And it's about someone who dies in this swim. But I am basing this on my expertise in this. And all of you out there, you're an expert in something. Even if it's sleeping, you're an expert in something. You could work in a bakery. It could be childcare. It could be, tuning cars. It doesn't matter. But I use that a lot. So I'll read this last little bit for you. And this is a description. Trisha's asking this one swimmer what it was like. Okay. Mike took a deep breath, looked at the blue sky, and then off into space. There were 4 waves of swimmers, about 100 in each wave. At the start of our wave, we were treading water between 2 orange buoys. All of us were inching up to the invisible starting line, but trying not to be pushed across it by those behind us. I was surrounded by swimmers wearing orange and yellow caps. There's always a lot of laughter at a start, some nervous, some not. People call back and forth to one another, that kind of thing. I was behind Dickwad, that's what I called him. I got so close I could read the black number on his upper arm, 254. His arms had goosebumps. I remember thinking, big, strong guy in your cold and 68-degree water, wimp. While he was treading water, he turned around. You know what that asshole said to me? I'm on you like flies on shit. You won't get away from me. I'm going to win again. Then the starter on the sailboat at the far end of the line waved a green flag. An air horn blasted. Go. Arms, legs, splashing water everywhere. Dickwad bolted forward. I remember thinking, go ahead. Take it out fast. you'll die soon enough. Mike gave an awkward smile. Prophetic, huh? Anyway, swimmers were inches apart, trying to move forward, almost swimming on top of each other. Wad took off like he was chased by a shark. I tried to keep up with him, but I was breathless. And it was less than 5 minutes into the race. I can't sprint for 3 miles. So I eased into a slower pace. Wad pulled ahead, and the amount of space between us grew. He was in the lead pack. But then that initial burst of energy was over, and he began to fall slightly behind the first group of faster, younger swimmers. Soon I'd caught up. I knew it was him because of the green lightning bolt on his swimsuit. I could see it underwater. I was swimming right at his hip, drafting, saving energy for when I wanted to pass him. He must have sensed someone was nearby. Instead of breathing just to his right side, he began to breathe every other stroke, first to his right, then to his left, quickly looking around to see who was next to him. When he spotted me, he tried to push ahead faster. But he had used up so much energy at the start, he couldn't accelerate. Instead, I moved up and slowly took over the lead. We were halfway into the race and I was ahead. So all I had to do was stay there. So from then on in, it was easy? Never. He was driving me crazy. He was so close that he was touching my toes with each stroke. I kicked harder, but he was still there. I couldn't lose the guy. So I threw in a couple of quick breaststroke kicks and could feel my feet connect with either his arm, maybe even his head. Must have been effective. Right after that, he didn't touch me again. That last leg of the swim was brutal. I could see the finish arch getting closer, growing larger. It was yellow, a little blurry, like I was looking through a thin layer of Vaseline. My lungs had shrunk to the size of walnuts. Hard to bring air in, push it out. I remember hearing my breathing like it was coming from someone else. I dug down for every last bit of energy I had. When my hand grazed the bottom of the lake, I stood up, lifted my knees high out of the shallow water, kind of like a drum major strutting down a football field, and sprinted through the finish arc. Once I crossed the timing pad, I was bent over, breathing hard. Then I turned around. Dickwad wasn't right behind me. He wasn't swimming at all. He was floating face down in the water with rescue paddlers racing to his side and an ambulance pulling up at the lake's edge. So I have been in swims where swimmers have died. And this is based, nobody was murdered, but there's, and I can go into that another time, but that is how you feel when you're swimming in a race and you're pushing hard, you can't breathe, and all you want to do is get out of the water as much as you can. So that's how I use my expertise. And I challenge you all to use your expertise to do that.
I mean, the term walnuts, like that was very I don't know if visceral is the right word, but, and I will say, just to add though, you did, you write what you know, your experience definitely informs everything, but your training as a journalist is about accuracy. And I think that contributes to you understanding kind of that full portrait of the five senses. So, it shows.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think that's all I have. I just challenge all of you to take those few seconds before you do your next writing and close your eyes, visualize something, see where you are, and see if that can add to what you're writing.
Great. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end. I don't see any more. Oh, I see a brava. Thank you, Claire. But I think that we're, unless there's something else. Well, actually, you've been doing such a great job with these Facebook Lives, and you need a little help. You need someone else to so you can go back under the water more often, maybe take up another water sport.
I'm done. There are no more, I don't think, for me, but thank you. Yeah, I just particularly want to thank you, Vera, for spending the time just to talk with me and kind of keep me straight here with these things. And to all of those of you who did stop in to see us, I appreciate this. This is such a beautiful day. And if you're interested in learning how to do something like this, put some comments in the comment section. And we'll go on from there. Again, thank you for everybody that was here. So I will sign us off now.
Have a great Mother's Day, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.